Look at this black monkey pretending to be human. The Chinese billionaire's words sliced through Marcus Williams like broken glass. Each laugh from Table 12 twisted deeper into his chest. Camera phones rose like weapons. Tonight would be different. Tonight, 3 years of swallowing poison would end. Victoria Sterling pointed her manicured finger at him, speaking Mandarin to her entourage. In China, we wouldn't let him clean our toilets. The laughter exploded, louder, crueler. Marcus's grip on the silver tray tightened until his knuckles screamed. Inside, the Harvard diploma burned. The presidential handshakes mocked him. 7 languages roared in his skull while he stood silent at $11 an hour. But Victoria Sterling had made one fatal mistake. She assumed the black man serving her wine was deaf to her language. She believed money made her untouchable. She had no idea she'd just insulted the man who once wrote the very trade agreements her empire needed to survive. The champagne on his tray cost more than his rent. The dress she wore cost more than his stolen career. But knowledge? Knowledge was priceless, and Marcus was about to cash in 36 months of humiliation in a single sentence. Le Bernardin breathes money. The scent of truffle oil mingles with perfume that costs more than a car payment, while crystal glasses sing against china plates in a symphony of privilege. Marcus Williams moves through this world like a ghost, invisible until needed, forgotten the moment he steps away. His fingers, the same ones that once held diplomatic pouches and signed international agreements, now grip a bottle of Chateau Petrus, 1982. $28,000 of fermented grapes. More than he'll make in 2 years. Table 12 commands the restaurant's most prestigious corner, where floor-to-ceiling windows frame Manhattan's glittering skyline. Thomas Bradley, CEO of Bradley Industries, drums his fingers against the mahogany. His Patek Philippe reads 8:47 p.m. The deal should have been signed by now. $800 million hangs in the air like incense, waiting for one signature. Across from him, Victoria Sterling holds court like an empress surveying her domain. Her laugh cuts through the murmur of conversation, sharp, metallic, but underneath, something else. A brittleness that speaks of constant performance, of never quite belonging despite the wealth. More wine, she commands in English, her accent thick as honey laced with arsenic. She doesn't look at Marcus. People like her never do. To acknowledge the help is to admit they exist as humans. And Victoria Sterling has spent 43 years learning that humanity is currency. You spend it on those who matter. Marcus approaches with practiced invisibility. 3 years of muscle memory guide his movements. Pour from the right, label facing the guest. Never let the bottle touch the glass. His uniform is armor, pressed so sharp it could cut, hiding the man who once wore Armani to state dinners. As he leans forward to pour, Victoria's Hermes bag shifts. Deliberately, calculating, it tumbles to the floor with theatrical precision. Pick it up. The words arrive in English, but her eyes telegraph something crueler. She turns to her entourage, 2 lawyers in identical Tom Ford suits, 3 financial advisors who smell like cocaine and desperation, and switches to Mandarin. Watch this. I'm training the monkey. The laughter starts immediately. Not entirely comfortable, one of the younger executives, Jennifer Walsh, shifts uneasily. She's new money, still remembering when her grandmother cleaned houses. But peer pressure wins, and she forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Marcus's spine remains straight as he bends, every vertebra a small rebellion against what his hands must do. The bag weighs nothing. The humiliation weighs everything. As his fingers close around the leather, Victoria's story unfolds in his mind. He's heard whispers in the kitchen. Richard Sterling, her British father, made his fortune in Hong Kong real estate. Her Chinese mother, once a secretary, endured decades of his colleagues' contempt. Victoria grew up between worlds, never quite British enough for boarding school, never quite Chinese enough for her mother's family. She learned early that cruelty was armor, that attacking first meant never defending. In China, she continues in Mandarin, loud enough for her live stream audience to hear clearly, we know how to keep the inferior races in their place. Look at him, dressed up like a person. Almost believable, isn't it? She laughs, and it sounds like champagne flutes shattering. Thomas Bradley shifts uncomfortably. He doesn't understand Mandarin, but cruelty needs no translation. The businessman in him sees 800 million reasons to stay silent. The human in him, whatever remains after 30 years on Wall Street, whispers that some deals cost more than money. But he says nothing. They always say nothing. Marcus straightens, placing the bag beside Victoria's chair, with movements so precise they border on mechanical. Inside, something molten rises from his stomach to his throat. Not just anger. Anger burned out months ago. This is colder, more patient. He sees his daughter Zoe in his mind, remembers teaching her Mandarin lullabies, wonders if she still remembers the words. The memory hits Marcus like a physical blow, dragging him back 3 years to when his name meant something. The State Department's mahogany conference room materializes behind his eyes, morning light streaming through bulletproof glass, the scent of fresh coffee mixing with leather portfolios. He'd been standing at that same window, reviewing the cultural exchange agreement that would reshape US-China relations for a generation. His signature on that document would have opened doors, built bridges, changed lives. To Williams, Secretary Harrison had said, her voice warm with respect, "You've done exceptional work. The President himself wants to thank you." Those words echo now, mocking him as he kneels on Le Bernardin's imported marble, wiping water with a cloth that costs more than most people's shoes. The email had arrived at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Anonymous. Untraceable. Claiming he'd sold state secrets to Beijing, complete with fabricated bank records and doctored photographs. By dawn, FBI agents were at his door. By noon, his security clearance was suspended. By the end of the week, his life was systematically dismantled like a Swiss watch, each piece removed with surgical precision until nothing remained but the broken mechanism of a man who'd once moved nations with his words. The investigation dragged for 18 months. 18 months of lawyers' fees that drained his savings. 18 months of friends who stopped returning calls. 18 months of watching his reputation burn in the court of public opinion while evidence mysteriously disappeared and witnesses suddenly forgot crucial details. When they finally cleared him, the damage was irreversible. No apology, no compensation. Just a form letter stating the investigation had concluded with no charges filed. Sarah left on a Thursday. She'd stood in their Georgetown townhouse, the one they'd bought with dreams of dinner parties and children's laughter, and looked at him like he was a stranger. "I can't do this anymore, Marcus. The scandal, the debts, the way people look at us. Zoe needs stability. I need stability." She'd taken their daughter with her, along with the last pieces of his heart that hadn't already been crushed by bureaucratic machinery. The divorce was final 6 months ago. She texts him photos of Zoe sometimes, little bridges across the chasm between them. His father's funeral was small. The old Marine had died believing his son was innocent, but broken by the weight of it. The newspaper's lies aging him 10 years in 2. Marcus had stood at the grave in a borrowed suit because he'd sold his own to pay rent, watching dirt cover the man who'd taught him that dignity wasn't about position, but about how you carried yourself when the world tried to break you. Now, in this temple to excess, Victoria's voice cuts through his reverie. "You missed a spot," she says in English, pointing to perfectly dry marble. Then, switching to Mandarin for her audience, "Look how eager he is to please. like a well-trained pet. In Shanghai, we have a saying, even monkeys can be taught to dance if you beat them enough. But there's something in her voice, an edge that speaks of personal experience. Marcus has heard the kitchen gossip, how her father's British colleagues called her the Oriental ornament at company parties, how she learned to laugh along to survive, how she married into old Shanghai money only to discover her husband's family considered her tainted by Western blood. The divorce left her wealthy but bitter, using cruelty as currency in a world that taught her kindness was weakness. The lawyers laugh uncomfortably, not understanding but sensing the cruelty. One of them, younger than the others, shifts in his seat. His name is James Chen, second-generation Chinese-American, and though he pretends not to understand his parents' language, every word cuts into him like glass. He watches Marcus's face, searching for a reaction, and finds only professional calm. It unsettles him more than anger would have. Victoria's livestream chat explodes with mixed reactions. Hearts and laughing emojis battle with question marks and frowning faces. The audience is splitting, some cheering her on, others beginning to feel uncomfortable. Someone writes in Chinese, "This is too much, Sister Sterling." She doesn't notice, too deep in her performance. The restaurant's manager, Robert Fourier, hovers near the kitchen door. He's worked at Le Bernardin for 15 years, risen from busboy to his current position through dedication and an ability to navigate the egos of the ultra-wealthy. He knows he should intervene. He also knows that Sterling International represents potential bookings worth millions. The arithmetic of capitalism wins, as it always does, but the calculation leaves a sour taste. Marcus straightens slowly, each vertebra uncurling with deliberate control. His phone vibrates in his pocket, a sensation so unexpected he almost flinches. He glances at the screen. A text from Dr. Patricia Morrison, his former mentor at Harvard. "Saw the stream, recording everything. Stay strong." His hands steady as he types back, "Almost time." When he returns, the table has erupted in laughter at something Victoria said in Mandarin. She's describing, in graphic detail, what she believes black people are like in bed, using language that would make a dock worker blush. But now he hears the desperation underneath. A woman so damaged by racism, she's become its agent, perpetuating the very poison that once wounded her. Marcus kneels slowly, deliberately, his movements carrying the weight of 3 years' accumulated humiliation. His knees touch the cold marble with a soft sound that somehow echoes through the restaurant like a judge's gavel. Time dilates. Seconds stretch into eternities. The money lies before him. 5 portraits of Benjamin Franklin staring up with paper eyes, witnessing this moment that will define everything to come. Victoria's laugh rings out, but there's a crack in it now, like ice under pressure. "You see?" she tells her audience in Mandarin. "They always kneel. It's in their nature. My grandfather used to say the black ones were easier to train than dogs, because dogs at least have pride." But even as she says it, something flickers across her face. Her British grandfather never said that. He said it about her Chinese mother. She's recycling trauma, repackaging pain she once received and passing it down the chain. In the kitchen, sous chef Marie Dubois watches through the service window. She's worked alongside Marcus for 2 years, seen him arrive early and leave late, noticed the way he carries himself with quiet dignity despite everything. Her hands clench around a kitchen towel as she watches him on his knees. She wants to burst through those doors, to scream at the woman in red, but she has 3 children and rent due tomorrow. The arithmetic of survival wins again. Marcus's hand moves toward the money, trembling not with fear but with something far more dangerous, restraint. Every fiber of his being screams for release, for the satisfaction of standing and letting 3 years of suppressed rage explode. But he thinks of his daughter, thinks of the lesson he wants her to learn from this moment. Not violence, not surrender, something else entirely. That's it. Victoria purrs, her voice dripping satisfaction that doesn't quite mask the hollow sound underneath. Show everyone you're true. Marcus's phone buzzes again. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Messages flood in. His story is spreading faster than Victoria realizes. The live stream has been picked up by several activist accounts, translated in real time. What started as her power display is morphing into something else entirely. The comments are turning. This is disgusting. Is this real? Someone needs to stop her. Actually, Marcus says, his voice carrying a different timbre now, deeper, more resonant, touched with an authority that makes several diners turn to look. I think you've misunderstood something fundamental about this situation. He rises in one fluid motion, leaving the money untouched on the floor. His height advantage becomes apparent as he stands at full stature, and Victoria has to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. The power dynamic shifts so suddenly that even the air seems to change, growing thick with electricity. You see, Ms. Sterling, he continues, and there's something in the way he says her name that makes her live stream viewers start typing furiously in the chat. You've been performing for your audience, but you forgot to ask yourself a crucial question. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows furrow. This isn't following her script. In her world, the one she's built with walls of cruelty to keep the pain out, servants don't speak unless spoken to. They certainly don't stand when told to kneel. How dare you? What question, you're wondering? Marcus doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. 3 years of swallowed words have fermented into something potent. You forgot to ask. Who else might be listening? The first crack in Victoria's composure appears as a slight twitch at the corner of her eye. She glances at her phone, where the live stream continues to broadcast to what she thought were loyal followers. But the tide has turned. Comments flood in. This is horrible. Reported for hate speech. Sterling International should be ashamed. Someone with a verified account writes, forwarding to corporate partners immediately. Thomas Bradley shifts uncomfortably in his chair. Something's happening here that he doesn't understand, but his instincts, honed by 30 years of boardroom warfare, are screaming warnings. He glances between Victoria and Marcus, seeing the invisible scales of power tipping in real time. Down. Victoria's voice has lost its playful cruelty, replaced by something harder, more desperate. The mask is slipping, revealing the frightened woman who learned that attack was the best defense. You're nothing. You're nobody. You serve drinks for tips. I could buy and sell 1,000 of you. Marcus actually smiles. It's not a pleasant expression, but it's not cruel either. More like pity mixed with determination. Interesting that you mention buying and selling. Tell me, Ms. Sterling, does Sterling International still need that cultural exchange permit for your Shanghai expansion? The one that requires State Department approval? The color drains from Victoria's face so fast, it's as if someone pulled a plug. Her hand moves toward her phone, but her fingers shake. The live stream viewer count is climbing. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 watching in real time. But they're not her supporters anymore. They're witnesses. Marcus reaches into his jacket with deliberate slowness, each movement choreographed to build tension. Victoria flinches, her entourage tenses, and somewhere in the restaurant a glass drops and shatters, the sound like an exclamation point in the silence. What he withdraws isn't a weapon, but something far more devastating. A simple white business card. Dr. Marcus Williams, he says, reading his own name aloud as if tasting each syllable. Former cultural attaché, United States Embassy, Beijing. Harvard University PhD in International Relations and East Asian Languages. Fluent in Mandarin, Cantonese, Wu, and 4 other languages you've probably never heard of. He pauses, letting each credential land like a blow. And most recently, consultant to the State Department on all matters relating to Chinese-American trade agreements. The card flutters to the table, landing next to Victoria's untouched wine. She stares at it as if it might bite her, this small rectangle of cardstock that has just rewritten her entire understanding of the evening. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. No words come. "But wait," Marcus continues, his voice carrying the rhythm of a professor delivering a favorite lecture. "There's more. You see, when you decided to live stream your little performance tonight, you forgot something crucial about modern technology. Everything lives forever in the cloud. Every word, every gesture, every moment of cruelty you thought was entertaining." He pulls out his phone, not the latest model, just a simple device that does its job, and turns the screen toward her. There, in perfect high definition, is her live stream playing back. But something's different. The comments section is exploding with a different energy now. The laughing emojis have been replaced by shock, anger, outrage. Someone has been translating her Mandarin in real time, posting every racist comment, every degrading observation, every poisonous word she thought was safely encrypted in a foreign language. My former mentor at Harvard, Dr. Patricia Morrison, has quite a following herself. Marcus explains conversationally. 3 million subscribers who are very interested in issues of racism and discrimination. She's been rebroadcasting your stream with live translation. Would you like to know what your followers are learning about you right now? Victoria's face cycles through emotions: disbelief, rage, fear, and finally, something approaching panic. Behind the panic, though, is recognition. She knows this feeling. It's the same one she felt at 12 when her boarding school classmates discovered her middle name was Mei Ling. The same cold dread when her ex-husband's family spoke about her in Shanghainese, thinking she couldn't understand their contempt. "The comments are fascinating," Marcus continues, scrolling through his screen. "I can't believe I used to admire her. This is disgusting. Is this really how she thinks of us? Oh, and there's a particularly interesting one from someone claiming to be on your board of directors. Emergency meeting being called. This is unacceptable." Thomas Bradley is already on his feet, his face a mask of corporate calculation. $800 million is a lot of money, but association with this kind of scandal? That's a career ender. "Ms. Sterling, I believe our business is concluded. Bradley Industries has no interest in partnering with individuals who demonstrate such blatant discrimination." "Thomas, wait." Victoria reaches for him, desperation cracking her voice like a teenager again, like the girl who was never enough for anyone. "This is a misunderstanding. It was a joke. You know how these people exaggerate everything." "These people?" Marcus asks quietly. "Please, Ms. Sterling, continue. I'm sure your audience would love to hear you explain exactly what you mean by these people." The restaurant has become a theater. Every patron an audience member to this reversal of fortune. Phones capture the meltdown from every angle, the story already spreading across social media like wildfire. Hashtag Le Bernardin Kissest is trending before the appetizers can be cleared away. Victoria Sterling, who minutes ago commanded the room with her wealth and cruelty, now looks small, diminished, a queen whose crown has turned to ash. "You planned this," she whispers, the realization hitting her like physical pain. "You knew. You've been recording everything." Marcus nods slowly. "Every word, every insult, every moment you thought you were demonstrating your superiority. You see, Miss Sterling, after I lost everything, my career, my reputation, my family, I had a lot of time to think, to plan, to wait for exactly the right moment." His expression softened slightly. "But I also had time to understand. You're not the first person to use cruelty as armor. You learned somewhere that attacking first meant never being vulnerable, but all you've done is pass on the poison someone else fed you. Victoria's phone buzzes incessantly. She glances at the screen and goes pale. Her father calling from London. The board members, the investors. Messages in Chinese and English, all carrying the same theme. Disaster. Each notification is another crack in the facade she's spent decades building. Victoria's phone explodes with notifications, each ping another crack in her carefully constructed facade. She fumbles to silence it, but the damage cascades beyond her control. On the screen, a message from her father in London burns in capital letters. "Board meeting in 1 hour. Do not speak to media." Below it, an email from Sterling International's PR director. "Crisis management team activated. Please respond immediately." Marcus watches her unravel with clinical detachment mixed with unexpected pity. This is what justice looks like in the digital age. Not handcuffs or courtrooms, but the swift judgment of public opinion delivered at the speed of fiber optic cables. He pulls out his own phone, fingers moving with practiced precision. "Posted," he announces quietly. The full recording, unedited, with certified translations in 12 languages. He pauses, allowing the weight to settle. "Not to destroy you, Ms. Sterling, but to ensure this pattern stops. The State Department, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, major news outlets. They'll all have access to judge for themselves." Thomas Bradley, still standing, reaches for his coat with movements that speak of a man who's survived countless corporate crises. "Dr. Williams," he says, and the title carries weight. Acknowledgement, respect, perhaps even apology. Bradley Industries would be interested in discussing consultation opportunities, real ones, at rates commensurate with your expertise. Marcus inclines his head slightly. "I appreciate that, Mr. Bradley. My situation will be changing soon." The phrase hangs in the air, professional but non-committal. Victoria's hands shake as she scrolls through her phone. Her follower count drops by hundreds with each refresh. Not the catastrophic hemorrhage of millions, but the steady bleed of real influence. The live stream has 30,000 views now, enough to matter, enough to spread. Someone has already created a reaction video, dissecting her words with clinical precision. "Please," she whispers, and the word seems to physically hurt her. This woman who built walls of cruelty to protect herself from ever saying that word again. "I'll apologize. Publicly, I'll make donations to any charity you choose." Robert Fourier, the restaurant manager, finally emerges from his calculated invisibility. His expression carries the weight of difficult decisions. "Ms. Sterling, I think it would be best if you settled your bill and departed. We can discuss future reservations at a later date." Diplomatic, professional, but the message is clear. The reality of her situation settles over Victoria like fog. Not instant destruction, but the slow erosion of social capital. Tomorrow there will be difficult conversations with board members, tense meetings with investors, carefully worded statements crafted by crisis management teams. Sterling International won't collapse. Companies rarely do from one executive's scandal. But her role will be restructured, her influence quietly curtailed. Marcus turns to address the room. Several patrons have stopped pretending to eat, drawn by the gravity of the moment. "What you witnessed tonight wasn't about revenge or destroying someone's life. It was about accountability. About the small cruelties we permit because someone has money or power. Every slight, every joke, every moment of dehumanization, they matter. They add up. They create a world where people think it's acceptable to demand another human being pick up money with their mouth." An elderly black woman at a nearby table starts clapping. Slowly, deliberately. Others join her. Not the overwhelming applause of a movie scene, but the scattered, genuine appreciation of people who've seen something that mattered. The young lawyer, James Chen, stands quietly and walks to Marcus. "Dr. Williams," he says quietly. "I understood every word she said. I should have spoken up. I'm sorry." He hands Marcus a business card. "If you ever need legal representation, pro bono, please call." Victoria struggles to her feet, designer heels unstable on legs that shake with the adrenaline crash of public humiliation. Her entourage hasn't abandoned her, but they've created distance, that subtle repositioning that signals changing allegiances. The money still lies on the floor, forgotten. $500 that cost her far more than she could have imagined. "You've changed nothing," she says, but her voice lacks conviction. "People like me, we always survive. We always come back." Marcus shakes his head slowly. "That's where you're wrong, Ms. Sterling. You'll survive, yes. You'll probably keep most of your wealth. But you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that everyone who smiles at you might have seen this video. Every business deal, every social interaction, you'll wonder if they know. That's not destruction. That's consequence." His phone buzzes. Sarah. "Saw what happened? Zoe's asking about you. Maybe we could talk. Just talk?" Another from a number he doesn't recognize. "Dr. Williams, this is Secretary Harrison. I believe we have unfinished business regarding your State Department career. Please call at your convenience." The universe, it seems, has a sense of timing, but healing takes longer than headlines suggest. The story breaks across media in waves, not tsunamis. Former diplomat faces discrimination at elite restaurant, runs in the Times. Viral video exposes casual racism in fine dining, posts the Washington Post. Responsible outlets focus on the systemic issues rather than personal destruction. The video reaches 12 million views over the first week. Significant, but not world-breaking, enough to spark conversations without destroying lives. In London, Sterling International's board convenes an emergency session. Victoria's father, Richard Sterling, who long ago anglicized his wife's family business connections into his own empire, watches his daughter's position evaporate with each agenda item. The vote is surgical. Victoria Sterling is transitioned to a non-operational advisory role, her executive powers redistributed, her public face quietly removed from company materials. Not fired, that would admit culpability, but neutralized. "She needs help," Richard tells the board in clipped British tones that betray no emotion. "A leave of absence for personal development, executive coaching, sensitivity training. Corporate speak for rehabilitation, for the long, slow work of examining why she became what she hated." The State Department moves with measured pace. Marcus's case file, dusty with bureaucratic neglect, finds its way to the secretary's desk. Not because of the video, government doesn't react to viral content, but because Dr. Patricia Morrison and several respected figures have been quietly advocating for years. The incident simply provides convenient timing for what should have happened long ago. Marcus wakes to find his voicemail full but manageable, journalists wanting comments, publishers interested in his story, advocacy groups seeking his voice. He deletes most, responds to a few, understanding that real change happens in deliberate steps, not dramatic leaps. At Columbia University, a professor incorporates the incident into her business ethics curriculum. Not as scandal or entertainment, but as a case study in power dynamics, unconscious bias, and the responsibility of bystanders. Students debate James Chen's delayed response, Thomas Bradley's business calculations, the other diner's silence. The discussion is nuanced, uncomfortable, productive. Dr. Patricia Morrison hosts a measured analysis on her platform, breaking down the incident for her 3 million followers. "This isn't about one person's fall," she explains. It's about systems that enable such behavior, about who feels empowered to humiliate others and why. Ms. Sterling learned somewhere that cruelty meant strength. Our job is to examine where and how we teach these lessons. The restaurant industry responds with quiet introspection. No dramatic blacklisting, but Sterling's name appears less frequently on reservation systems. Managers hold staff meetings about dignity and respect. Several establishments quietly review their policies on handling discrimination. Small changes, incremental progress, the real work of systemic change. In a Harlem community center, Marcus speaks to a room of service workers and students. He chose this venue deliberately, not for media attention, but for connection with people who understand the daily weight of dignity denied. 3 years ago, I lost my career to false accusations, he begins, his voice steady. I thought I had fallen as far as possible, but serving tables taught me something my diplomatic career never did. That dignity isn't about your job title. It's about how you carry yourself when the world tries to make you small. His daughter Zoe watches from the audience, spending her weekend with him as per their custody arrangement. She's processing what happened, asking difficult questions about why people can be cruel, about whether her father was scared, about what she should do if someone treats her that way. These conversations matter more than any media coverage. Ms. Sterling thought she was demonstrating power. Marcus continues. But real power isn't about humiliation. It's about patience. It's about choosing your moment. It's about responding to cruelty with truth, not more cruelty. Sarah sits 3 rows back, having driven Zoe to the event. Their divorce is final. Their paths diverged. But she wanted their daughter to see this. Later, over coffee, while Zoe plays at the community center, they talk. Not about reconciliation, some bridges can't be rebuilt, but about co-parenting, about healing, about moving forward as 2 people who share a child and a history, but not a future. The ripples spread professionally. Marcus accepts a position with the International Center for Migration Policy, using his languages and experience to help refugees navigate systems that often dismiss them as invisible. It pays less than Bradley's offer, but provides something more valuable, purpose aligned with principles. Victoria Sterling begins therapy in London, finally examining the wounds she spent 40 years armoring against. Her therapist, Dr. Sarah Okafor, helps her trace the patterns, from her mother's humiliation at British garden parties to her own weaponization of privilege. The work is slow, painful, necessary. Not for public redemption, but for private reconciliation with the parts of herself she buried under designer labels and defensive cruelty. A month after the incident, she writes Marcus a letter. Not an email or text, but handwritten pages exploring her actions, her history, her recognition of harm caused. She doesn't ask for forgiveness or response, understanding that accountability means accepting consequences without demanding absolution. Marcus reads it once, then files it away. Some journeys must be walked alone. 1 year later, Le Bernardin continues its elegant service under the same crystal chandeliers. The restaurant hasn't changed dramatically. Revolution rarely comes to establishments that perfect their craft, but something subtle has shifted. The staff move with the same precision, but there's an added awareness, a recognition that every interaction carries weight beyond the transaction. Marcus Williams stands before a United Nations Committee on Workplace Dignity, not as a keynote speaker, but as one of several experts providing testimony. The room is smaller than the General Assembly, the audience policymakers rather than celebrities, the work incremental rather than dramatic. This is where real change happens, in committee rooms and policy documents, in the slow reformation of systems. We live in a world, he begins, reading from prepared remarks refined through multiple drafts, where technology has made every moment potentially public. But publicity isn't justice, And virality isn't victory. What happened to me happens to millions of service workers daily, without cameras or consequences. Our task is to create systems where dignity doesn't depend on documentation. In the audience, his daughter Zoe takes notes for a school project on civil rights in the digital age. At 12, she's developing her own understanding of justice, more complex than the simple narrative of heroes and villains. Sarah drops her off for these visits now. Their relationship evolved into functional co-parenting, built on mutual respect for their daughter's needs, rather than romantic reconciliation. The incident at Le Bernardin has found its place in academic literature, cited in papers on workplace discrimination, digital accountability, and the intersection of race and class in service industries. Not as the dramatic tale of one man's revenge, but as a data point in larger patterns, a catalyst for conversations about power and dignity in contemporary society. Victoria Sterling works quietly at a legal aid clinic in London, having discovered that the skills that built corporate empires can also help immigrants navigate bureaucratic systems. She's not there for publicity. No cameras document her transformation. She's there because somewhere between therapy sessions and sleepless nights, she realized that redemption isn't performed for audiences, but lived in small daily choices. Her letter to Marcus remains unanswered, but she writes others, to the employees she belittled over the years, to the colleagues she stepped over in her climb to power. Most don't respond. Some do. The work continues, private and necessary, understanding that some harms can't be undone, only acknowledged and learned from. The question isn't whether we film injustice. Marcus continues his UN testimony. It's whether we create conditions where injustice feels permissible in the first place. Every industry, every institution, every interaction, we must ask ourselves whether we're building systems that recognize humanity or hierarchies that deny it. Sterling International has restructured, bringing in diverse leadership and implementing comprehensive training programs. Not because of one viral video, but because market forces and generational change demand it. Victoria's removal created space for leaders who understand that strength doesn't require cruelty, that power can be exercised with dignity intact. Thomas Bradley's company partners with Marcus's organization on refugee employment initiatives. Their collaboration is professional rather than personal, built on shared goals rather than shared history. The $800 million deal that wasn't signed led to better partnerships, more sustainable growth, decisions based on values aligned with long-term success rather than short-term gain. At Le Bernardin, a young black woman serves at table 12, moving with the same practiced invisibility Marcus once perfected. But she also carries a recording device, understanding her rights, knowing that patience doesn't mean powerlessness. The manager, Robert Fourier, has implemented monthly dignity workshops, small sessions where staff discuss respect, boundaries, and the balance between service and servitude. Marcus concludes his testimony with measured words. Power isn't about forcing others to kneel or standing when they expect you to crawl. It's about creating systems where no one has to choose between dignity and survival. It's about recognizing that every person serving your table, cleaning your office, or delivering your packages carries a story worthy of respect. The committee moves to questions. The work continues in its unglamorous way. Later, Marcus takes the subway home, anonymous among evening commuters. His phone buzzes with a text from Zoe. Proud of you, Dad? See you this weekend? He smiles, types back confirmation, and settles into his seat. As New York flows past the windows, its restaurants and offices, its visible elite and invisible workers, one truth remains constant. Dignity isn't negotiable, respect isn't optional, and in an age where every moment can become history, how we treat each other when we think no one's watching reveals who we really are. The story that began with humiliation ends not with triumph, but with progress. Slow, imperfect, ongoing. Because real change doesn't come from viral moments, but from the patient work of building a world where such moments become unthinkable. Where power means lifting others up. Where service comes with dignity intact. Where every person, regardless of uniform or title, is seen as fully human. What would you do? The question echoes not as social media challenge, but as daily choice. In every interaction, every moment of power imbalance, every opportunity to see or dismiss another's humanity. The answer matters less than asking the question, examining our choices, and choosing dignity, for ourselves and others, one moment at a time.